What's up, everybody? It is I, James, coming to you once again from the Nerdy Musings podcast studio. I am very excited today to be joined by Mr. Bryan Ballinger of breadwig.com. We're going to learn more about what Breadwig is, all about the awesome, finely coiffed, bearded gentleman just like myself. Mr. Bryan, how are you doing today?
Doing good, man.
Awesome. I understand you just got done with arm wrestling practice.
I did, yeah. I'm tired but happy.
What a strange world we live in to where we connected via arm wrestling, and next thing you know, we're on a podcast together.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
Yep.
had no
Really
clue
funny.
that you were an awesome artist. That was so cool when we discovered that about each other, that we were both into art and a lot of the
Yep.
same things. I'd like to know, like, how did you get into art? Has it been a lifelong passion of yours since you were a little kid, or did you get to it like in your teenage years? Like, give us a little background on how you got going with all of this.
Yeah, pretty much I would say since fourth grade, I've been really into it. I had a best friend in fourth grade who was a really good artist, way better than me. His name was Heath. And so yeah, I was heavily influenced by him. And so been drawing since then, really into comic books and comics, and
Speaking
that
my
was
language right there.
yeah.
Yes,
So that was
sir.
my biggest influence would be comics. Um, so yeah, and I just never stopped and still going. And I can draw a direct path from the kind of stuff that I was drawing when I was in fourth grade to what I'm doing now in my 50s.
Nice. So you were more into like looking at your style. You kind of like the cartooning type of style of artwork. That's something you've been attracted to since the beginning of your art pursuits.
Yeah, like Peanuts, Charles Schultz stuff, BC, like Heathcliff and Underdog Show. I'm also a massive fan of superhero comics too, but yeah, the more cartoony stuff is definitely what was influencing me the most.
Very cool. And coming up, what kind of superhero comics were you into?
Um, Believe it or not, Ghost Rider was my favorite. Loved
Nice.
Ghost Rider. Yeah. And Spider-Man and X-Men were always, something I really liked. And, now I like all that stuff, but then I also like, Warren Ellis and other graphic novel stuff.
Got into the
Like the
finer side of comic
Yeah.
writing and everything
Yep.
that often we don't appreciate when we're younger, and then we get further into it and start discovering there's all new horizons for us to explore.
Yeah. Yeah. Frank Miller kind of opened that door for me, but
Yeah, Frank's phenomenal, man.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I see a lot of
Oof.
people giving him guff these days because his art style, he's doing very much what he thinks is fun, and he doesn't care what anybody thinks. So it's hilarious for people to be talking smack like, "Oh, he can't draw," and it's like, bro, do you even know the source material? Like the stuff that he did
Oh
back on
man.
Daredevil and everything else. Like it was like game changing stuff.
Oh yeah. He's a master.
Were you
Absolutely.
into all the Dark Knight stuff?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Like that. I like the Daredevil stuff too. Yeah. Yeah. And that really was kind of the for me the superhero stuff like a stepping stone or entryway into the more complex graphic novel stuff.
Awesome. Were you a big
Yeah.
fan of 300?
Yep. Yep. I'll tell you the Hellboy, massive Hellboy fan.
Mike Mignola.
Uh, yeah, Mike, he to me is kind of the apex. But yeah, I love the Hellboy stuff. I love the BPRD stuff too, with Guy Davis doing the artwork on that. I tend to prefer the Mignola stuff where he's doing the writing and the art. But BPRD with Guy Davis is like amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
they did good work on that. But I'm right there with you. I prefer Mike's stuff on Hellboy, definitely.
yeah,
I think we were talking about that when you came to the wrestling practice when you were visiting out here, and we got to talking about comics, and you mentioned Mike Mignola, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've been studying how he does his light and shadow and all that kind of stuff. It's just like breathtaking work. And a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
people don't realize, like, we were talking about Frank's old work and everything and how it's very different from what he does now. Like, some of the fill-in issues and stuff that Mignola did on some of the X books and stuff are just like completely different, but awesome in their own way.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I like even though his style is completely, utterly not like what I do, I can still like look at it and draw things from it. And, I've taken like my style and tried to do some of like the harsh shading and things that he does on his. And yeah, you can learn a lot from stuff that people are doing that's completely different than what you do.
Yeah, that's what people don't realize. It's like you can take so many inspirations from so many different places and put them into a blender, and
Hmm.
out comes this completely different style. I think that's the really cool thing, like being influenced and inspired by the work and taking the pieces you love and putting them into your own work. So with your work, obviously we were talking about how you kind of have this more cartoony style and everything. And you had that when you were younger, when you were first getting into drawing. How has that style evolved over the years?
It's become more refined. It's actually been influenced a lot, strangely enough. Okay, so my drawings are really flat, really two-dimensional, really flattened. And I actually have a really hard time thinking dimensionally. But the irony is that I'm massively into 3D computer graphics and have been for, since the early 90s. And so, I've done a lot of 3D computer graphics. I worked in an animation studio.
Did
I
you
can
ever
model and
did you ever create your own levels in Doom?
uh,
Remember back when you could
yeah,
do that,
yep,
download the
yep,
map builder and everything? I was
yep,
big into
yep.
that back in the
Yep.
day.
Me too. Me too. Yep. And so yeah, but the funny thing is the 3D stuff has influenced my 2D, and I've taken like when I'm taking my 2D stuff into 3D, it's fun to kind of force the 3D into keeping the character of my 2D stuff. So I would say like my involvement with computer graphics has influenced my art and vice versa. Um, so yeah. Um, but it's still got the flavor of the stuff that I was doing when I was a kid. Absolutely.
Well, that's cool that you were able to keep that. Like
Yeah.
that's still there, at the heart of it all. And keeping that spirit alive, that's very important, and keeping it, fun and exciting for yourself after all these years. Like
Yeah.
I would never guess your age. I was telling you that at arm wrestling. Remember all the guys were freaking out when you told them your age? Like, yeah, I think there's something to staying young at heart, and keeping these
Yeah.
fun hobbies and things alive are very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I found that I'm not typical when it comes to arm wrestling either, because most people don't start in their 50s, but
Yeah.
um
Look at
it's
me.
so
I started
fun.
in my 40s, like my mid
Yeah,
40s. So I think it's something really cool that we can do, and
absolutely.
actually actually do well at too.
Yeah.
That's it
Yeah.
shows you how much of it actually is technique. I think that's a huge misconception. I know a lot of people, the first thing when you tell them you're into arm wrestling, they say, oh, I could never do that, I don't want to break my arm.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
exactly, everybody says that.
And then
Either
you
that
have
or
to
that.
explain,
Yep.
oh no, that's actually very uncommon. Like that's because the person themselves is putting themselves in a bad position. It wasn't because the other person was so strong that they literally yanked their arm off. Like there's all sorts of nuance and things going on.
And there's so many levels to it, and it's like you just can keep learning more and more and more and more. Like every practice, I feel like I'm figuring something else out.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
and me both, man. How long have you been practicing now? Pretty short amount of time?
Yeah, right around right a little over a year.
Okay. And what was your initial introduction to it?
Um Somehow a video popped up on YouTube. It was probably a Devin Larratt video.
I think,
Um
yeah, I think that
yeah,
happened to a lot of us during the
yeah.
pandemic.
Yeah, and I watched it and I was like, I was just fascinated with it. It's just like a lot of other things that I've become fascinated in. Like the first time I heard heavy metal, I was like, well, that's interesting. And I just, yeah. And then when I started watching videos and seeing guys that were still doing it when they were a lot older, like I saw Crazy George, and it was just like, wow, that's really cool. That
Yeah,
is
you've
really
got
cool.
guys out there in their 60s that are still competing at a high level and doing
Right.
well, and mid to late 50s. Like, it's just very inspirational to see. Obviously, it comes with its soreness and things,
Yeah.
especially when you're first getting into it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely encourage anybody out there listening. Like, if you want a fun hobby with a sense of community and camaraderie and everything, like there's a lot of that in arm wrestling. Just such neat people it seems that we get to connect with and train with. And I heard it's just an excuse for guys to hold hands and stare into one another's eyes. That was one thing I heard. Maybe there's something there. I don't know. That can get that connection.
Yeah, could be, but yeah, it's just so much fun. Yeah, again, it's the community, and it's always learning different levels to it. And it plays also into like everybody's different. And
Yeah,
so everybody that you arm wrestle with is a totally different ball of wax, and you can
for
learn different
sure.
things, and it's also just really fun to help other people kind of get into it too. So, yep.
Speaking of always learning and being open and receptive to that, I'm assuming that back when you were first into art, this is way before the digital age of art and drawing on tablets and computer screens and everything else, Wacom tablets, all that good stuff. So, what did you find the biggest hurdle was for you when going from traditionally drawing to digital, or because you were so into computer stuff and everything else to begin with, did you find that to be an easier transition than you were expecting it to be?
Well, that's an awesome question, because when I was starting out, yeah, it was all pencil and paper. But when the first computer graphics started to happen and become, well, able to be done at home, like the late 80s, early 90s, I was all over it. I embraced it immediately. I thought this was fascinating. So I started with the first version of Photoshop back in 1990, taught it to myself. I leveraged that into a job at Microsoft, where I was the first illustrator ever hired at Microsoft,
Oh,
actually,
wow.
because I knew how to do some computer graphics stuff.
Did you
And
design the paperclip guy?
no, but I am very good friends with the guy who did. Kevin Atterbury did
Oh,
design that, and he also we in fact we worked in the same building at Microsoft.
that's
Um,
amazing.
yeah. So, and when I started out, I was like, I had to do all my illustrations one pixel at a time with a mouse, just sitting there.
Yep.
Took forever.
MS
Um,
Paint style.
oh yeah, yeah, it was brutal. Um, I actually got carpal tunnel from just clicking on the mouse,
Oh, I bet.
zooming way in. But yeah, I found the transition easy because of my fascination with it and just how much I loved it. So, and then that, working in Photoshop and things like that and then I went in and started doing 3D computer graphics. And so my career has always been a mix of traditional and learning new stuff. And like, I'm totally now into 3D printing. Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, 3D printing is becoming way more publicly available now to us as well. Like, I know my brother-in-law is big into the replica making and Star Wars helmets and all sorts of stuff. And he doesn't have a 3D printer yet, but I know one of these days he's going to get a hold of
oh
one of
yeah,
those bad boys, and we're going to have some
he's got to
fun.
get one. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, like, so I illustrate children's books. And what I do now is I make all my characters in 3D. So
Nice.
like, okay, so this is one of my more recent books,
Ah,
The
the
Big
Big
Wig
Wig
Parade.
Parade. Yeah, I saw that one on your
Yeah.
website.
Yeah, so what I do is I even though like like you look at the I mean, look at that character. That's not 3D. That is flat,
Yep,
as you can get. Um, but I like to end up I model all my characters and 3D print them.
that's
And then I like
amazing.
have them sitting on my desk while I'm illustrating the book, and I can use them for reference. And
How
like this
cool is
guy
that?
even
You can
has,
look at them in 360 view and everything.
yeah, and it's like they're real all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So I build all my characters in 3D and just kind of have them, and then I can send them to my publisher too, and they can have them sitting
Everyone
on their
who's
desk.
listening, I always, every episode, I encourage you to look at the YouTube version because there's always amazing stuff being shown on screen, whether I'm doing a screen share or whether the guest is showing us amazing 3D printed figures that they've 3D modeled. Like, definitely, you can do both. Listen to the audio version, pop on
Yep.
over, look at the video version. Like, a lot of cool hidden Easter eggs in our videos here lately. So I want to make sure to encourage everybody to check it out. Um,
Yeah.
youtube.com/ at nerdy musings, easy to find. So in bringing the characters to life, like bringing them into the 3D realm, that has to be such a trip to see them. You said you don't really think three-dimensionally too much when you're drawing them, yet you're bringing them into real life through the 3D modeling and the 3D printing. Has that like made you feel even more connected with the characters, and like
Oh yeah.
you can
Yeah.
see more of their personality and breathe more life into them after seeing them right there in
Yep.
front of you?
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like all of a sudden it's just another step. It's like, oh, this is a real thing. I can see it and I can move it around. Um, and then it's also a challenge to bring my 2D style into 3D. And I like forcing it to do stuff that you normally wouldn't see 3D doing.
Yeah.
Um, and not look, as typical. Cause like, so here's this guy is from another book that I have out, or that's coming out in another month.
Nice.
Um, so it's a banjo playing pig, and he made his banjo out of a toilet seat and a plunger.
Yep.
Um, and and I never draw the eyes the same size, and so I translate that into 3D, and
Great
yeah,
asymmetry. Yeah.
yeah, yep, yep. So yeah, I've always found it fun to kind of push things and have them not not do exactly what the original intention was
Yeah,
behind the
not
tools.
conform to the traditional approach for sure. That keeps it more fun and more unique, I think. Like
Oh
so
yeah,
many of us, like we think there's a certain way we're supposed to draw or a certain, form our art should take. And that's something that I'm really trying to find. Like, I don't know that I have a style, and it's so weird. I have so many influences, and sometimes I'll do a sketch or something, and somebody will tell me like, oh, that looks like so and so, and I'm like, well, I've never even looked at that artist, but thank you, like that's cool. Like, it's interesting how you can maybe even just glean the stuff from, through osmosis or something, through seeing it at some point, and it comes out into your work. um so you said like Charles Schultz and some of those people were very influential on your style in the beginning.
yeah, absolutely. I think like for me, style comes out of two doing what you really enjoy doing, and working as much of yourself into it. So if you have a strange absurd sense of humor, work that into what you're doing. I think that also helps, because everybody is different, right? Everybody is unique, and the more of yourself that you have in it, the more your work's going to stand out because it's you. So yeah, I love it. Like when people look at something and say, "Oh, hey, I recognized your work here or over here," or I do murals, and people say, "Oh, I knew that right away," and it's like, "Yeah, well, thanks. That's cool. Yeah, it's put all the stuff that I love into it." Um, yeah, and I just think that really helps you stand out.
Yeah, it definitely keeps it authentic, and I'm sure it keeps it more fun for you being, keeping it unique and being yourself. Like there's
Yep.
nothing better than just being yourself and doing your thing and doing what you love. So, did you ever think that this would be your path in life? This would be your like thing? Was that the overarching plan, or did it just kind of work out that way?
Uh, it sort of has, my goal always since I was a kid was to be a cartoonist and and to have a strip in the Sunday paper. And that never really happened, but things adjacent to that happened and things similar. And yeah, the path my career has taken, I never really would have planned out, but I'm doing pretty close to what I originally really wanted to do.
Well,
So,
and
but it got there in
you're
all sorts of ways. Yeah.
yeah, and you're self-publishing from the looks of it, right? Like you're
No,
coming.
actually,
Do you have a publisher?
yeah, I do. Yep.
So, dude, so
Yeah.
that's even like that's super cool. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
legit published work by a publisher. Like, don't get me wrong, it's really cool when people do their own independent stuff and
Oh,
self-publish,
absolutely.
but like getting a publisher to pick up your work and actually putting these, I know you've done all these children's books and everything. Like, how did that all come about? Was it just getting a body of work together and kind of, you know, putting a pitch together and taking it in? How did you develop that? And
Um,
like, how long ago did that take place?
okay. It took decades to get for me to kind of get to where I'm doing books with publishers. I always tell people you got to be super stubborn doing this stuff and just not give up. So for me, my path was that I tried and tried to get published. I did illustrate other people's books, but getting my own that I wrote and illustrated, that was not happening for a long time. And so I finally just said, okay, I'm gonna do what you just said and self-publish. So I did a Kickstarter for a book called Animal Gas, and it was a successful Kickstarter. And so I self-published the book. It was a scratch and sniff book, and
Oh man, that
and
combined
then
with the title, my mind is wandering places.
yep, and then that actually helped me get a literary rep. So, and then a publisher actually saw, I think they saw my self-published book, and then they wanted to publish it, and then I got to work with my literary rep on it. Um, and then I've since had a number of literary reps. The one I have now is they've all been great, but yeah, the one I have now is fantastic, and that really helps because then they're pitching your stuff to publishers, they're getting you past the slush pile, they're
Okay.
helping you get your work better, and it's going, yeah. So if you can get yourself a literary rep, that helps a ton. It helps a
Yeah,
ton.
I've actually never heard that term before. So what exactly does a literary rep do? Is that almost like what an agent would do for like a celebrity, like kind of get you gigs and that type of thing, like work on your behalf for that, but in this, regard with publishing and everything?
Yep, yep. They're just like an agent. So they have the connections. They can send stuff directly to editors who they know would be interested in the kind of stuff that you do. So instead of you sending in your work and it going into a big room or getting weeded out by AI or by interns and then maybe eventually getting to an editor, this kind of bypasses that because they know it's already been kind of looked at and stuff. So yeah.
Gives you a little more of a foot in the door, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then they do all the contracts and things, so you don't have to worry about that. They negotiate all the terms and all the budgets and prices and stuff. So, which is stuff I don't really enjoy. So,
So you can focus on your work.
exactly. Yep.
So you've done murals, you've done children's books, you're doing toys. A lot of the toys, I'm guessing, are inspired by the characters in your books.
A lot of times, a lot of my stuff is like even the stories are from my sketchbooks. So, like I just draw all the time, and I'm drawing characters, and I save everything, and then pull some of them out and be like, okay, I'm gonna make this guy needs to have a story, or this one needs to be a toy, or this I need, I got a big mural coming up. Let's flip through the old sketchbook and see what inspires me to, you know, keep going with
Oh, that's
this.
awesome. So you
Yeah,
draw inspiration from all that stuff that maybe you're almost at the time kind of mindlessly jotting down and just letting it out of your brain and getting getting it on the paper. Yeah.
100% exactly. Because yeah. And that's where a lot of awesome stuff happens, where you're not like trying to force it into something or, you know, just coming out and yeah. Yep.
Have you ever dabbled in animation?
I have in 3D computer animation, not a little bit in 2D. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, 3D, yes, I have. I worked for the studio that made the VeggieTales series. And so I did some modeling and some other things on the shows, and did some animation for the DVD versions of some things. And I also illustrated their children's books, and things like that. That was
Yeah.
awesome. That was a great place to work.
You have done all the things, my friend. I am impressed. Every time I ask a
Yeah,
question, I never you go, "Oh yeah, I worked for Microsoft. I was the first artist. Oh, I know the guy that
yeah.
designed the paperclip guy for Windows."
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
did you explore? Well, I'm assuming you saw it because I know you use some digital tools for your drawing. I'm assuming you've used Procreate before and Clip Studio, and like they're making it a lot easier to animate now. I'd be really interested to see how some of your stuff translates into animation. Like, I know it's a matter of finding the time to experiment and learn a new
Yeah.
tool set. That's the hard part, but I think that could be
Yeah.
really cool.
Totally. Yeah. It's on my list to learn the Procreate animation version. I have played around with there's an iPad app called Loom. I don't know if you've ever played with
I've
that.
heard of it. I
That's
haven't got to play
that's
around
really
with it.
fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really love that. I have done some animation with that. It's super fun. But yeah, Procreate's an awesome app.
What for your 3D stuff, what are you using? What software do you use for your 3D modeling and everything?
So I've been doing 3D stuff since the 90s. So I started in the 80s on a symbolic system, which was like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Um, I didn't own it, but
Right.
yeah. And then I've moved through and I used Softimage and Maya
3D
and a whole bunch of
Studio.
3D Studio
What was the
Max,
other one? Was it Lightwave or something? There was,
Lightwave.
and
Yep. Oh,
Lightwave was what the college that I went to insisted on using. It was always crashing and giving us trouble.
yep. Yep. So, uh, and then in ZBrush. Now I use Nomad on the iPad, and I absolutely love
Oh,
it.
okay. I
It's
haven't heard
like,
about that one. It's on the
yeah,
actually on the iPad Pro.
yep. And it's
Wow.
it's like Procreate for 3D. It's fantastic. And so I do almost everything in there. I can prep my models for 3D printing. I can sculpt anything. I can paint on them or send the model over to Procreate and paint on it in Procreate. Um, and I can sit there and, TV's going and I can or sit in a coffee shop or whatever and just sculpt and model up whatever I want. So I pretty much do almost, yeah, like 90% of my 3D stuff in Nomad.
I think it's crazy how much digital creation has evolved just in the past, few years. Like to the point where I know with comics, a lot of artists, their whole workflow now is all digital on the iPad. And now you're talking about how you're using the iPad. You can completely 3D model and do all these things. Like, I know there was a lot of pushback back in the day when it came to drawing comics digitally. Like I remember people acting like it was like cheating and like you didn't
Mm-hmm.
need to know how to draw. It was like you magically just, like the computer was doing it for you or something. And they didn't realize like, no, you have to have all the base knowledge. It's just a different tool. And now we're
Yeah.
kind of transitioning into a different age where people who don't necessarily know how to draw or how to do any of these things are being able to type stuff into the AI and have it generate and, bring their visions to fruition, so to speak. Not necessarily an original vision because it's churning out stuff that's been fed into it. But I wonder how
Yeah.
that's going to evolve and where that's going to go. Like, I definitely have my concerns. We've talked about it a few times here on the podcast, and just the concerns where, for me, especially thinking of like concept artists, because I've seen some, and movie studios, they're going to do what's cheapest. Yeah. They'll show me
Yep.
the money, right? Or show me
Money.
the money I don't have to put out, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
you could just have a, a director of prompts that sits there and churns, types the prompts in, and the AI churns out the concept art.
It's worse than that, James. It's
Where are
gonna
we
be
headed?
worse than that. It's
Tell
gonna
me,
be
my friend,
you
where
know
are we
what
headed?
you know what I need to have you on my podcast that's all about AI and its effect on human creativity.
Oh my God, you got a
Um,
podcast on that?
yeah,
I'd love to
yeah,
be
yeah.
on.
So I've been doing a lot of thinking on that. Yeah, yeah. We'll
Yeah.
definitely have to do that. Um,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on that. Been following it pretty closely. Um, it can get it goes pretty negative.
Yeah. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been trying to see, like, we haven't talked like in depth about it with anybody on here, but it's I haven't had a guest on who's had much positive to say about it. Like, I brought up the point where I could see if it was used in the capacity of providing inspiration. Like, if
Yes.
you have writer's block or something and you go, man, I just can't figure out where to, go with the third act of this story. Give me some ideas. And then it's not creating the story for you, but it's like, oh, the character could do this, this, and this. And then you actually go and finish writing your story. Like, yeah, it could be used as a great tool for that. Or
Right.
maybe I'm trying to draw a dynamic pose and I just can't get it right, and I say, hey, could you show me how to make this look better? And it's like, oh, try posing him this way with his arm back here and his hand like this. And it's like, oh, okay, now I made it through that hurdle of where
Right.
I was having that block. Like, to me, that's, if I was going to use it, that's how I would use it. But instead, we're seeing,
It's a
people
slippery slope
typing
though.
something in and saying,
Yeah.
I'm an artist. And
Yep.
here's my thing that won the Todd McFarlane's Spawnuary cover contest, but in like trying to pass it off as a real piece of art that they did, when really they did not interact with it other than typing the prompt in.
It can absolutely be used for inspiration and it's very good at that. The problem I see with it is that it can do everything. It can do all of it. So it's kind of like, okay, you could use it for this little slice here or this little bit of inspiration, but it's so easy for it just to do a little bit more. Well, or a little bit more, and before you know it, you're not really doing anything.
Yeah.
Um, and it's definitely way more cost effective. Um, my my general outlook on commercial art is that it's in huge trouble.
Yeah.
All of it, all of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with you. And I think that's where we're seeing like a lot of artists trying to push back, like especially with what Instagram was doing, was saying they could scrape your stuff and utilize it. And then at least here in the US, I've heard that it's easier in other countries to opt out of it, or at least supposedly they're letting them think they're opting out of it. Here you have to like file an objection, and they say they can deny your objection and everything else about them not.
Yeah,
And then the big
yeah,
one now, I'm sure you've heard of, is Adobe. Adobe's saying, hey, we can
we
go in
can.
there and have our AI scrape all your stuff and get
Yeah, yep,
fed.
yep.
Feed the machine, baby.
We're looking at everything you're making,
Yep.
and we're gonna do what we want. Yeah.
And
Um,
Microsoft, like, I know Windows have just rolled out their whole thing with where they can probably look at this and take our faces and everything else. It's buried somewhere in the, 80 million word user
Yeah.
agreement that none of us read.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I think there's some positives that could come out of this, but I think it's going to be ugly and messy. But I mean, it could make us redefine what art actually is.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there hasn't always been what commercial art is now is not the way it's always been. And, fine arts could become more appreciated through all of this. We'll see. But, you've probably seen like Sora and some of the other video
Yep.
stuff.
The video stuff is getting insane.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to
There
be,
goes the need for like a helicopter pilot or a drone operator. Like, I mean,
well,
show
think
me a
about it.
shot of,
Yeah.
show me a shot of, uh, this island, and I want a drone flying over it, and I want that footage. It's like type it into Sora, and you can make that pretty well, where you have to have a very keen eye to spot that it's AI right now, even at this early stage of it.
Right. Wait a few months and that'll be different.
And that's the other thing that I think is making this even more difficult, is just how rapidly it's evolving.
We're not equipped as human beings to adjust and react to things that change this quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
it already seems fast that you can get a new phone every year, or that software, you get a new version every year. Well, this is changing every day.
Do you think it was a coincidence that like all this stuff hit during the pandemic and like really popped off? Like, think about it. The Oculus VR became made readily available for everyone. Cryptocurrency, it's like, oh, you don't know about this thing? Like, this is the new thing. Everybody should be into this. And then all the AI stuff really started popping off. Like, do you think it was because we were all just sitting here bored and they're like, oh yeah, we've been working on this forever. Let's just put it all out now while everybody's captive audience and can see it? Or I
I
just find it weird, like how many like
Yeah.
technological kind of revolutionary things were all rolled out during that time. Now, granted, it was a few years, kind of time period that it was all rolled out over, but I just always think I'm like, man, like, and you were to be like, it was almost like, oh, you didn't know about this? Like, yeah, this is the thing. Like, yeah, crypto, yeah, this is how everything's gonna go. This is the direction. You're like, wait, what?
What? Yep. Yeah. I'm sure companies have stuff that's way further along, or stuff that they just
Yeah.
haven't released yet.
And the Pentagon
But the thing
admitted that
is,
UFOs were real during the whole thing, whole pandemic
yeah,
too. Like, let's just throw that out there, and like nobody batted an eye. It was like we were all so distracted. Like, oh, what?
we were kind of primed for all this with all the social media stuff, you know, getting us
Yeah,
to where we are now.
definitely.
And then with, oh yeah, the AI stuff is,
What is the name of your podcast about the AI, so we can make sure that people check it out?
it's called the Calathumpian Parade. And so it's on YouTube.
Very
And
cool.
I do it with another illustrator friend of mine, Matt Faulkner. And so, yeah, we look at the latest news and kind of see what we think, what effect that's going to have on people, and the effect of all the art stuff on human creativity. And it's it's fascinating and changing every single day.
Well, I'm definitely going to be giving you a follow over there and checking that out. And
Yeah, yeah, we'll have to have you on that
if you have
for
me
sure.
on, I mean, it would be an honor. Like that, that
Yeah.
would be fun. Just a different topic to explore. Yeah, I haven't done a lot of research, but I do follow more kind of what it's doing to creatives, and in the specifically the art, industry and comic art and everything. Like, I know a lot of artists that are making like a mass exodus from Instagram right now because of that whole thing, and going to that Kara app or whatever. And it's like, that's cool. They're saying it's like made for artists, but who knows where that one will go? Like, are they all going to be
Right.
pushed into going that direction? Like, or who's going to
Well, it's
buy that
having
one?
yeah, and it's having an effect on like I it's got to be really hard for publishers too. Like children's book publishers are getting inundated with all these submissions and art, and you can't know if it's written by AI or the artwork is done by AI, and you can't currently copyright it either.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of putting the brakes on things that like
Well, and
yeah, it's
that's
really
the thing. Like with writing, how are you going to tell like that? With the video, I know there's some. I don't know if they're plugins or apps or whatever that you can run stuff through, and it can actually detect if it was created with AI. And I know for some of the video and art stuff that's available, but for
but that's a cat and
words,
mouse game, I
yeah, and
think.
then words and ideas, how are you going to sort that out? Like, oh, you didn't create that. Like, oh, Bryan, you didn't create your, let's see, what's this book here? Counting Cows. Yeah, no, you generated that with AI. And you're like, no, it actually came out of my brain. I wrote it. Like,
Yeah. Or what if what if somebody took used AI just for inspiration or just a little bit or used it to extend an illustration a little bit or used it to clean up a manuscript.
yeah.
Who wrote it? I mean, who owns it? Who wrote it? Who is it copyrightable at that point? Who knows?
Yeah, I know my
Who knows?
wife is very happy she's no longer a full-time graphic designer. She
Oh
was
man,
and
graphic
she's very
designers are
modest, so she will probably be listening to this and give me a hard time afterwards. But she won like international awards and stuff for some of her work over the years, and very accomplished graphic designer. And now, like, I know we were talking the other day. It's of her. Her opinion is that like Adobe products are being messed up by the AI right now because she'll go in to use a product that she knew how to use all the years, and it's like all of a sudden everything has changed, and like everything is a default setting for this new thing that you used to easily be able to do. And she's like, what's going on? Are they letting AI design their interfaces now or what,
Well, did you hear? I was watching a video of a guy who was a graphic designer who had just lost his job and talking about it. And he had been at a company and they took all of his templates and all of the previous work that he'd done at the company and trained an AI on it and then
Oh
let him
my
go. And
goodness.
the AI just does it all and it's all trained on him.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy. And they're just sending off those royalty. Oh wait, no, they're not.
Nope.
He's not getting anything for that.
Nope.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's the crazy part.
Yeah.
Well, not
But
so
I
much. I
think,
mean, let's go ahead, finish your thought, and then we'll switch gears to not so
yeah,
much
yeah.
doom and
I just think,
gloom.
yeah, I just think the act of making stuff will become even more important. And watching other people, human beings, making and doing and performing, I think that's going to become more important. But yeah, yeah, I do, I worry on one hand that people who would would have gone into arts won't because of this, but then I also think the experience of it is something that can't be replaced. The actual
Yeah,
getting better, making something that you made yourself, thinking about things and and improvising and problem solving. I hope that that's going to be still around.
yeah, I do too. And I'm sure there's people who will use another argument. They'll say, well, there's going to be people who get into art through messing with a like a AI image generator and then realizing that, oh, I want to learn how to do this and I want to be able to do it on my own and all these things, you know. So, yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword, but
Yeah,
it's hard to find the it's hard to be realistic and not find the inherent dangers of where it's all headed, correct?
absolutely. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, switching gears back to more positivity, more of your work. What is your latest work? You said you have something coming out here soon. What is that going to be, and where can people get it?
So I have a book called A Pig Named Joe and His Quest to Be Fancy, and that will be coming out, I believe, end of July, early August. And you can get that at any bookstore or Amazon or, wherever. So I'm super excited about that. That's probably my favorite thing that I've done so far. It incorporates my love of banjo playing pigs, obviously. But then also it's got some homages to heavy metal and bluegrass music and absurd food, and it's just it's super fun. So I'm excited about that.
And is the next project after that one already in the works?
Yep, working on something that I'm not allowed to talk about that I
I figured,
really,
but I
really, really wish I could, because I can tell you a little bit
that
off
just means
air.
we'll have to have you back on once it is
Yeah,
public.
yeah, yep. And so I've got some more murals coming up pretty soon, and yeah, no shortage of stuff.
You're staying busy, huh?
Yeah, yep.
24/7. Are you a night owl?
That is naturally I tend to be. Yeah, yeah.
Same here. Do you think that has something to do with being a creative minded person? Because I really struggle with like at night, like late at night is really when I want to draw and like I feel the most creative. And I'm like, it kills me because then on the other hand, my hobby that became my livelihood of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and running the school is like, if I got to get up to teach a morning class, I'm like dead. Like
Your
maybe gotten,
host. Yeah.
I've maybe gotten 5 or 6 hours sleep if I was smart and went to bed early enough. And
Isn't it hard like late at night and you're hitting that groove and you got to get up in the morning
yeah,
and you got to decide, am I going to keep riding this wave or
yeah,
am I going to shut it down? Oh, yeah.
you gotta, it's the risk and reward thing. So sometimes you just have to go, okay, well, I guess I'm only getting a few hours sleep because I want to keep doing that, keep the ball rolling on this. Like sometimes I get with that with editing these podcasts. And I'm like, oh, just a little bit more. Oh, I can get this one done and have it uploaded and scheduled like weeks in advance if I just power through. Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
it's the night owl DNA. Have you always been somebody who was like that, like really creative at night?
Yeah, pretty much. At least since like junior high.
Yeah, I think I get it from my
Yeah.
mom. I remember her being
Yeah.
up like super late. She's a world class seamstress, so she used to actually design and create clothing for people that show horses, their fancy outfits that they would wear. And I remember her like, gosh, there was more than one occasion where she would stay up 2 or 3 days straight to get stuff done just because she had the deadline and she had that creative energy. And so I
Yep.
think I'm cursed. I'm cursed
Yep.
because of my mother with the the night owl gene.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
It's
That
funny.
sounds like it.
I call her every night, and our average, call time is like after midnight because we're both up.
Hmm.
And yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
definitely can be. It's like you said, you gotta go with it. Like 'cause sometimes you
Yeah.
have to go with it if the creativity's flowing and you're actually being productive. Like it's what's hard is when you get that creativity going and then you get distracted by like these dang phones. Like sometimes I'll accidentally get on to like check email or do something productive on there and then veer off into Instagram scroll land.
Yep, yep. I always say hyper focus is a blessing and a curse. It's
Yeah.
yeah, boy, when you're in the zone and something external is trying to get your attention, oh, that's hard. That's hard
Yeah, it
switching
can be
gears.
hard to pull yourself out of that, right?
Yep.
Like for me, I've actually noticed like if I keep my phone like far from me, that's kind of what I have to do. I'll like put it in a different room or somewhere where it's not right in reach because I'll be like sitting sketching and then next thing I'll know I'll be on there and I'm on there looking at artists. Like I'm looking
Yeah.
at the
Oh,
stuff that
sure.
inspires me, but I'm not actually making the stuff that could inspire other people potentially or
Mm-hmm.
improving my artwork.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I've recently cut back from social media quite a bit. So, yeah.
It's very hard when you are your brand, though.
Yes, it
And I
really
tell
is.
people that all the time. I'm like, I would not have, I do not think I would have Facebook or Instagram in the capacity that I do if it wasn't for it being a necessity of having the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu school that literally has my name on the building. So it's like,
Right.
you have to, when you are your own brand, it's unfortunately, you know, fortunately and unfortunately, in the world we live in, it's a necessity to have
Yeah,
a
it really
successful
is.
business.
Yep. And it
I,
can lead to some really great stuff. But,
yeah.
yep.
Well,
Yep.
nowadays, that's how
Balance.
everybody finds you.
Yeah, it totally is. Yep, for
Used to be
sure.
you could have a decent website and good SEO, and that's how people found you, or the phone book, even
Yep.
before that. But
I
now,
remember people finding me on my blog.
yeah,
Get get people in comments all over the place. That's nothing now.
yeah, it's just doesn't cut it. Like you have people like I remember when people used to actually call the business, but now it's like they either want to email or text.
People don't like to use phones as phones.
Yeah, yeah. Like that was even weird
Yeah.
when I had to call you when we were having our little technical difficulties.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
how rare is that, right? Like
Yep.
before it was just text and good to go. Like, yeah, we're a
Yeah,
different
you almost get
generation, my
anxious.
friend.
Yeah, I know. I know. I've seen well, I taught for almost 20 years college students, and I saw the progression of them getting more and more anxious over calling somebody on their phone.
Yep.
Yep.
What subject did you teach?
So I here in Indiana, I helped start the animation program at a college. So I taught, yeah, all sorts of animation, mostly a lot of 3D computer graphics and animation stuff, but then also I taught some illustration classes and some other things as well. Yeah, I
I'm just
really
gonna
enjoyed
keep
it.
probing, man. I learned something new about you with every question. Oh
Yep.
yeah, no big deal. I just taught like for 20 years in
Yep.
college. Like, not a
Yep.
problem. You have led a very interesting life, and I kind of feel like you're just kind of getting started, man. Like you got
Stuff's
sounds
still
like you have
happening.
no shortage of work, and maybe a
Yeah.
shortage of time with not being have enough time to get all things done. And now you added this arm wrestling hobby into the
I
mix.
know. I know. Of course, you're one to talk with all the stuff you're doing, and
I
I
know
mean,
it's
look.
crazy. I can't talk at all.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
But I think, especially being in, well, our hobbies, our side hobbies are things that are pretty stationary. Sitting
Yep.
at that art desk back there, sitting in a computer chair doing a podcast. Like, I think we got to
Yeah.
have those extra things
You
to
got
keep
to.
us moving.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
You've
Yep.
probably
I
noticed
I
it.
think I think like even like weightlifting and arm wrestling and stuff as somebody who's at the age that I'm at, I noticed that benefits from that all day long.
Yeah,
Picking up groceries and
yeah,
still having
everything.
grip strength and all that stuff. Yep.
Yeah, I definitely think there is a lot of research that backs up like all the benefits of staying active. Like it's all stuff that we know and we're told, but I think it's all about finding that thing that you enjoy that you can get into and sparks that
Yep. That's the
inspiration.
same with art. Same with art and same with stuff like arm wrestling and jujitsu and stuff. It's what you can be passionate about it. You're gonna make it work and you're gonna be much more into it. And yeah, 100%.
100%. And you never know
Yep.
what kind of amazing, interesting people you're going to meet through your fun
I
hobbies.
know. Isn't that funny?
I'm I'm just honored to have met you through arm wrestling and to have you on the podcast tonight. I know it's a lot later there. You're 3 hours ahead of me, so, and I know you just came off of a hard arm wrestling practice, so I want to give you the spotlight, give you the floor here at the end to let everybody know where they can find you on social media, let them know your website, and anything else that you would like to plug. The floor is yours, my friend.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, you can, my website is breadwig.com. So that's bread like bread and then wig.com. And then my Instagram is breadwiggram. So it's just breadwig with RAM at the end, breadwiggram. And you can follow me on there. Yeah, and if you've got kids or want to get picture books for kids, or you just like picture books like me, you can check out some of my stuff. Just look for my name in bookstores or online stores, and yeah, and then more stuff to come.
More stuff, all the things, guys. Make sure that you give him a follow. Check out his stuff. I definitely look to have you back on when you can talk about that new project. I'm gonna hold you to that invite to your podcast as well. Something different for me to do. I'd love to do it.
We're gonna do it.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, hang out with me for a moment here while we rock out. I'm gonna hit this outro. Everyone, keep it nerdy. Have a great week. Got any dance moves you're working with there, Brian? Oh, geez. Yeah. The arm wrestling.
Yeah.
It's the arm of where's the pronator?
Yeah.
That pronator popping. Oh, my biceps getting a split in it.
There we go. There you go.
Oh, that arm wrestling's paying off. There we go. This is strictly an arm wrestling centric. I'm just flexing. I'm not even dancing.
You gotta work the table into it.
I think you win for the best outro, Brian. You win, buddy.
Awesome.